Hi everyone, welcome to Chalchitra Talks. मेरा नाम वानी है and in this episode I want to talk to you about 5 of my favorite love letters. But before I get into this video, I also want to talk to you about this app that I've been using quite recently. The name of the app is Trell and it's actually very interesting. It's a lifestyle app and we also happen to have a handle there under the name of Chalchitra Talks. Moving on to my favorite love letters. I have made a list of 5 love letters, and it was actually a little difficult. So, um, there are some which are very famous, but there are also some, I hope, um, some letters that you've never heard of. But getting into the list, the first one is by Emily Dickinson to Susan Gilbert. This is a very famous relationship. Susan Gilbert was Emily Dickinson's sister in law. But Emily Dickinson loved her dearly so. Figuring मैंने पूरी नहीं पढ़ी है जो मारिया पुपुआ की किताब है, but she's dedicated as many as 400 to 500 pages on their relationship. That's when I realized there were so many poems that Emily Dickinson had written for Susan Gilbert, जो उनकी sister-in-law थी. And their relationship was so beautiful and heartfelt, but at the same time so painful because they could never be together. Both of them loved each other so much so, but unfortunately they couldn't be together. And she eventually became Emily Dickinson's brother's wife, that is her sister-in-law. So there are a couple of things that she's written about Susan Gilbert that I thought I'd share with you. And even 20 years after meeting Susan Gilbert, Emily Dickinson wrote something like this: to own a Susan of my own is of itself a bliss. Whatever realm I forfeit, Lord, continue me in this. And sometimes she also wrote to Susan, and this is one of those letters. She says, show me eternity and I will show you memory, both in one package lane and lifted back again. Be Sue while I am Emily. Be next what you have ever been, infinity. And all these letters that she's written to Susan Gilbert are so beautiful. And she called her her infinity, the only woman in her life. And Susan Gilbert loved her equally so, but the relationship is so beautiful. And they continued to be friends throughout their life and shared this affection for each other. The second piece of letter that I want to share with you is actually the one that was exchanged between Virginia Woolf and Vita. A lot of you have already heard of it because this relationship is very famous. Virginia Woolf apparently wrote the entire Orlando after Vita and her relationship. In 1926, almost a year after their affair started, Vita left for a trip and both were really happy about it. But Vita wrote back from this trip and to Virginia Woolf, and this is a very famous letter. She wrote, I am reduced to a thing that wants Virginia. I composed a beautiful letter to you in the sleepless nightmare hours of the night, and it has all gone. I just miss you. In a quite simple, desperate human way. You, with all your undumbed letters, would never write so elementary a phrase as that. Perhaps you wouldn't even feel it. And yet, I believe you will be sensible of a little gap. But you would clothe it in so exquisite a phrase that it would lose a little of its reality. Whereas with me, it is quite stark. I miss you even more than I could have believed. And I was prepared to miss you a good deal. So this letter is just really a squeal of pain. It is incredible how essential to me you have become. I suppose you are accustomed to people saying these things. Damn you, spoiled creature. I shan't make you love me any the more by giving myself away like this. But oh my dear, I can't be clever and stand a fish with you. I love you too much for that. Too truly. You have no idea how stand a fish I can be with people I don't love. I've brought it to a fine art, but you have broken down my defenses, and I don't really resent that. What I love about this letter is how Vita compliments Virginia Woolf's writings. And she says, I miss you, but this is a phrase that I'm pretty certain you will never use. Even if you were to feel it, you would have written it in a way that would have been so exquisite. But there would still be a gap. And I hope you feel that gap. And then she talks about how Virginia Woolf has actually walked into her life and she's pulled her out of a shell. And she doesn't really resent coming out of it or breaking down her defenses for Virginia Woolf. There was a room that was dedicated to Vita in Virginia Woolf's house because Virginia Woolf always kept it open for anticipating Vita's visit. And Virginia Woolf would decorate it with flowers, hoping Vita would visit her. And a few days before she died by suicide, Virginia Woolf actually wrote to Vita, and she wrote, I've just stopped talking to you. It seems so strange. It's perfectly peaceful here. They are playing bowls. I just put flowers in your room. And there you sit with the bombs falling around you. What can one say except that I love you and I have got to live through this strange, quiet evening thinking of you sitting alone. Dearest, let me have a line. And I just love this letter because you see how Virginia Woolf has tried to stop from writing to Vita, but eventually she just gave in and she wrote, Dearest, I've just stopped talking to you. It all seems so strange. It's all perfectly quiet here, but all I can think of is about you sitting alone. Just drop me a line. And that is something that makes this letter so special. The third letter that I want to talk to you about is a letter that Richard Feynman wrote to his wife 16 months after she died. And he was really fond of writing love letters to his wife. And there is a book, Perfectly Reasonable Deviations from the Beaten Track. And a lot of his letters appear there. And this is one of them. And he writes, and the letter is dated October 17, 1946. It's a long letter, but I'll try to speak out a few words. He says, I adore you, sweetheart. I know how much you like to hear that, but I don't only write it because you like it. I write it because it makes me warm all over inside to write it to you. It is such a terribly long time since I last wrote to you. Almost 2 years, but I know you will excuse me because you understand how I am, stubborn and realistic. And I thought there was no sense to writing. But now I know, my darling wife, that it is right to do what I have delayed in doing, and that I have done so much in the past. I want to tell you, I love you. I want to love you. I will always love you. I find it hard to understand in my mind what it means to love you after you are dead, but I still want to comfort and take care of you. And I want you to love me and care for me. I want to have problems to discuss with you. I want to do little projects with you. I never thought until just now that we can do that. What should we do? We started to learn to make clothes together, or learn Chinese, or getting a movie projector. Can't I do something now? No. I am alone without you, and you are the idea woman and general instigator of all our wild adventures. Then he goes on to write, I know you will assure me that I'm foolish and that you want me to have full happiness and don't want to be in my way. I'll bet you are surprised that I don't even have a girlfriend except you, sweetheart, after 2 years. But you can't help it, darling, nor can I. I don't understand it, for I've met many girls and very nice ones, and I do not want to remain alone. But in 2 or 3 meetings, they all seem ashes. You only are left to me. You are real. My darling wife, I do adore you. I love my wife. My wife is dead. Rich. And he says, P.S. Please excuse my not mailing this, but I don't know your new address. This letter is something that has stayed with me throughout my life because sometimes you just envy the love people share, and this is one of those letters for me. Fourth letter that I want to share with you is actually by Johnny Cash, and he wrote it to June Carter on her birthday. And he said, "Happy birthday, Princess. I do not want to be called Princess, but what follows is something that I really like." He says, "We get old and we get used to each other. We think alike. We read each other's minds. We know what the other wants without asking. Sometimes we irritate each other a little bit, maybe sometimes take each other for granted. But once in a while, like today, I meditate on it and realize how lucky I am to share my life with the greatest woman I've ever met. You still fascinate and inspire me. You influence me for the better. You are the object of my desire, the number one earthly reason for my existence. I love you very much." What I really like about this letter is how he reflects that we grow old and we get used to each other. We know what the other person likes and so on. But once in a while, I like to meditate and sit on it, how lucky I am to actually have you in my life. And the other correspondence that June Carter and Johnny Cash have shared with each other is also beautiful. You see this other side of Johnny Cash that you thought you'd never see, and it's absolutely beautiful. The fifth letter that I actually want to share with you is not really a letter, but a poem by Faiz Ahmed Faiz. And I wouldn't narrate the entire poem because I really think I will not do justice to it and I will ruin the charm of the words, but I will still try to explain a few words to you as per my understanding. So the name of the poem is Tum Jo Na Aaye The, and it's a very famous one. And he says, "Tum jo na aaye the, to har cheez wahi thi ki jo hai. Aasmaan hade nazar, raah guzar, sheeshai mein. It means until you had come, or before you had come, everything was just as it is. The sky, as far as you could see, the road, just a road, wine glass, just a wine glass." And then he says, now that you've come here, everything has changed. The sky is the sky, the road, the wine glass are all of different colors, the color of my heart. And he goes on to compare these colors to the autumn leaves, blood, a red flower, a poison. And he says all of these are colors that I see everywhere around me. And then he says कि अब जो आए हो तो ठहरो कि कोई रंग, कोई रुत, कोई शय एक जगह पर ठहरे, फिर से एक बार हर एक चीज वही हो कि जो है आसमान हदे नजर, राह गुजर, शीशाई में. And now that you've come, please stay, so that the color of everything and every season stays still the way it is. And once again, when you're here, I can enjoy all these pleasures of life the way I have enjoyed them until now. The sky, as far as you can see, the road is just a road, and the wine glass, let it be just a wine glass. And I know it was a terrible phrasing of the entire process, but I love it anyway. So these were 5 of my absolute favorite love letters. If you have some recommendations for me, do let me know in the comment section below, because there are so many love letters that I'm yet to discover. Before I go, I also want to tell you that you can now contribute to us on Patreon or join our YouTube community. We have defined our patrons into different categories. The top one being The Godfather, which is the one that you should also check out. It's our top tier, and we have exclusive perks for them. Quite recently, Weber and I made individual and personalized calls with them as well. And there's also this app that I've been using quite recently. I really hope you'll check it out. It's called Trell, and it's a lovely lifestyle app. And it's a place where Weber and I obviously make our recommendations as well, under the name of Chalchitra Talks. What's different about the platform Trell is that we usually recommend things that we don't really recommend here. Vaibhav talks about books, I recommend music, and it makes this app very personal for us as well. So do check out the app and do follow us on Trell. And do let me know if you think my music taste is decent. And I will be back again with another recommendation for all of you guys next week.